Che fare? Scende! Ma è pazza, perché scendiamo? Sì, l'ombrello, vabbè, ma...
Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the burst of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across the urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggling to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas.
Boom! Konstantin gemacht!
A powerful storm hit Sicily. Italy caused severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage, and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest hit. In Catania, streets turned into rivers, and water level rose in 3 drilling hearts. The historic city center, which is usually turned to tourists, is now eerily quiet. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. Video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which further agriculture to situation. Trees have been uprooted, roofs have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the travel dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urged residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar extent to chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays. Sicily, normally bridge collapsed, looks the dew blow from the narrow fields, and wild green groups are now fast asleep through the molten water. Environmental warning: in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the strength and the unity. One of the Syrians, Lucia Manso, said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other. The most important things." Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby, with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The EU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing the livelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe is, especially by the Mediterranean basin, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators. In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the crisis from the rising test were activities sheltered the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to army to assist in evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people to affected areas to remind cautions to offshore warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconfuse the force. This is national emergency, and we are working closely to local authority to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure and urban explosion into flood-prone areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrete, Ragusa, and Agrigento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines, and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes, and retail, and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed 12-year work. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridges in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountain's town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defendants until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stirred by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the floodwaters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warn the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding the police and another storm front cold in southern Italy by the weekend. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpours have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, washed away, and many homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po of the Angel, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions were put the test. The iconic Mos Barriers, designed to protect the city with the rising tides, were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to flee the high ground. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania, University standard formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displace it. One image of white Sicily flag flying proudly over the flood town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at a room and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, help workers to warn into possible communication flow to overflow, thin and standing water. Meteorologists at Meteo Italia say a storm system may be raking the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warning climatologist Dr. Elena Ferraro events tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. "This is not just a random error," said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. "This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now." International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity. Experts warn that such events are becoming more frequent due to climate change, especially in the southern Europe. Palermo Mayor Robert Lalacalla called the government assistant, say this is no longer a seasonal storm. This is a climate emergency. We need to urgent investment in infrastructure and prevention. No casualties have been confirmed, but dozens of people have been received medical attention and injured in the shock. The Italian government has promised to assess the damage and provide funds to clean up in the coming days. Sicily is beginning a relentlessly clean up the storm is stark reminder of increasing unpredictability of nature in the face of global warming. In Messina, landslides blocked major highways, isolated several mountains villages. Farmers in Sicily reported several damaged crops with olive groves and a vineyard underwater. One of the local farmers, Antonio Bellini, said, "We have lost half of our harvest. We haven't seen rain like this in 40 years." Temporary shelters were set up in community center and church for families who were forced to leave their homes. Volunteers are working around the clock to distribute food, blankets of our necessities. Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in the recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Anginda and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flooding undated in low light unprecedented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Bellero. In the town of Aguirre and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue volunteers injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport. 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in blizzards but also in dialect and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle is calm sea is sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the arch Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are rich in culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Morandi, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway treacheries of Noto and ancient Greek ruins are still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected.
No, vabbè.
Amo, vai di là, chiudi.
Public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area faced to boost with a storm and strong wave crashing against the coastline, caused erosions to damage the sea definitions. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized a team to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in their homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to immediate danger year. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losses with a could have long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours in vast residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught.